Welcome to the Cover 2 with Phillip Jordan. Phillip and friends break down the latest news in professional football every week. So let's get this thing started and snap the football. Hut, hike.
Well, everybody, welcome into the Cover 2 NFL podcast. This is your weekly look at all things pro football. I am your host, Phillip Jordan from Last Word on College Football and 96.9 The Legend in Dothan, Alabama, where I'm the in-studio host and producer, Dothan Woods Football. Got a fun show planned for you guys this week, continuing our series where we're previewing all the divisions in the National Football League. Today is the AFC East, and to join me will be Matt Barbato from the Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. We'll break down the Buffalo Bills, the New York Jets, the New England Patriots, and the Miami Dolphins. Not in order, but we'll be going in alphabetical order. And at the end of our conversation, we will rank the teams 1 through 4, how we think they will finish, and who will be in the playoffs, who won't. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to be the only team in this division that makes the playoffs. Matt has 2 in there, so you can check that out in just a few moments. Before I bring Matt on, I'll let you guys know you can find me and the podcast. You can find me on social media at PJordanSCC. Podcast is available on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you get your podcast. The Cover 2 NFL podcast is there. You can also watch the show over on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. Just hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to get all the notifications when a new episode is there. And please leave a comment on one of the videos, and I will read that on a future edition of the show, and also on Apple Podcasts. You leave a review there. I'll do the same thing there. I will read it, get your name mentioned on the show if you leave a review, and you can always email me at sports.philipjordan@gmail.com. Now, let's preview the AFC East with Matt Barbato from Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. Everybody joining me on the show today. We are continuing our division previews here on the show. We're in the AFC East this week, and joining me is Matt Barbato, longtime friend of any podcast, radio show I've done. You can check them over at the Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. And Matt, I'm really excited to jump into the AFC East with you. We did this last year. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's great to be back with you, Phillip. I feel like I can always see where I'm at in the calendar by like which show I'm going on with you. So it's like, all right, Phillip's calling. It's football season coming around pretty soon. So it's always exciting to preview this division and, do my beloved New York Jets last per usual.
Yeah, we're going up back order here, so don't let anybody think there's any bias or anything because of the team we're going with first and all that good stuff. But, just overall, just look at the interesting division. I think looking at this division, there's probably just how the AFC is going to look this year. A spoiler alert, I think maybe there won't be only one team that may make the playoffs out of this division this year. You never know, maybe surprised. But it's an interesting division. Of course, you got Buffalo at the top, and you got the other 3 teams as well. Just looking at the division overall, what's your thoughts? Is it a strong division? Is it a weak division?
I think it has the potential to be a strong division. Now, you've got the mainstay in Buffalo, who's going to be great, and they're the favorite to win the Super Bowl. Then you've got Miami, who really made some of the biggest splashes of the offseason. And then you've got the Jets, who made a lot of big roster improvements. And then you've got the Patriots, who, I don't really think they've made their roster much better, but are you really going to bet against Bill Belichick? So I think top to bottom, the division could be pretty solid. I don't think it'll be as good as like the AFC West or the AFC North, but it's definitely better than the South. And I think you could see, you could see 3 teams make the playoffs out of this division, and that'll be probably really tough in a loaded AFC, but it's improved, I would say. I think the one team that didn't get better on paper is New England, and they've got the best coach in the division in history. So,
yeah, this will be interesting. Yeah, last week, I actually did ask the question, what is the worst division in the NFL? Because I did the NFC East last week, and on that show we talked about it's either the NFC East or maybe the AFC South as the worst. And then I said, when you got the Jaguars and the Texans in your division, you got to be the worst in the league. Just gonna say that.
And the Titans are, I think, going to fall back this year.
I do too, which I'm in the South, so that's probably where a lot of my listeners come from, and they love the Titans. So which I'm going to upset some of them in this conversation as well today too. So some of my SEC crossover fans here on this podcast. But let's join the Buffalo Bills. They've won the division title 2 years in a row, 3 straight playoff appearances, and they lose Brian Daboll. Ken Dorsey's coming in, pretty much going to run the same offense, which I think that is smart. cohesiveness, consistency with your quarterback. I look at them on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, and this is not a negative. This is a positive. I just don't see. Can they be better? I mean, obviously, I believe this team is the favorite in the AFC, in my opinion. With a Tyreek Hill trade to Miami, I believe that put Buffalo. They should be the favorite, in my opinion. But with Buffalo, just initially with you, what are your thoughts? Because especially on the offense side, for me, I don't see a weakness. I don't really, I think they could be just as good as they were last year. They were fifth in total offense last year, maybe even better. It's kind of interesting where this team, could go. Obviously, they want to win the Super Bowl, and they're a favorite to do so.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at it. I mean, they're 13 seconds away from probably winning the Super Bowl last year. I mean, if they don't blow that game to the Chiefs in inexplicable fashion, I think they would have taken down the Bengals, and then I think they were a better team than the Rams on paper from top to bottom. So you could be looking at a team that feels really snake bitten this year. I think they're going to come out highly, highly motivated to make a statement in that opening game against the Rams, which is going to be fantastic. I can't wait.
Yes, it
will. Offensively, I think the one area I want to see Buffalo improve, and it doesn't even have to be top half of the league in offense, but I want to see that running game take another step forward. And what I mean by that is, can Buffalo run the ball when they need to run the ball? I look at that game, and again, these are extreme circumstances, but that Patriots game and the 60-mile-per-hour winds, they couldn't move the ball on the ground and free up Josh Allen for any short, easy throws. I mean, the Patriots just loaded up the line of scrimmage, and they they defended against the short pass, and the Bills couldn't move the ball at all. And I think that's because their running game just hasn't been able to maybe not take over a game, but sort of take the pressure off of Josh Allen this year. I'm not a huge fan of the personnel. I think Devin Singletary, Zach Moss are guys. I think James Cook, he gets a lot of interest from a fantasy perspective. I think because he's just a new shiny toy, and you probably know a lot about him from his Georgia days, but he seems like more of a third down guy to me. I just want to see if that running game can really reach that next level. And when the Bills are in a tight playoff game and they're trying to close a game out, or they're in adverse conditions, and they play in Buffalo, so it's not going to be passing weather most often in January in the playoffs. Can they run the ball when they have to? They can throw the ball at will. I mean, their playmakers are amazing. Stephon Diggs, I think Gabriel Davis is going to take a big step. I really like the Jamison Crowder signing. I think he's going to be a big improvement over Cole Beasley. The passing game will be great. I think they'll miss Dable, but like you said, I think Dorsey will do a good job with the offense. It's just, can they get that running game going when they absolutely have to?
Yeah, and when you look at just what they averaged per game on the ground last year, see 129.9 yards per game. So that's a good number. But then you got to look at how much of that is Josh Allen, what he's doing. The running backs. I mean, I would actually like to see maybe Buffalo not have to rely on Josh Allen as much. Don't take that away from the offense or his game, but don't rely on that to be, the center of your running. Because there's a couple of games last year where you're right. They couldn't run the ball, and their running game was Josh Allen. And Devin Singletary, I mean, he's a fine running back. He's not bad. He's not great either.
It's fine. Exactly.
Yeah. With James Cook, with Georgia, I agree with you. He's probably a third down back. He's good out of the backfield. He made some big catches in the playoff game against Michigan. But, he's not going to probably be your every down back. But that's another thing there. You're not really using him perhaps to run the ball, more be as a passing threat. So I'm with you 100%. They need to get the running game with the running backs going and kind of take some of that pressure off Josh Allen.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the Chiefs when they won their Super Bowl. People were saying Damian Williams was going to, should have been the MVP of that game because of his performance. The Chiefs were able to take advantage of the light boxes that they see because of their prolific passing game. And the Bills just haven't been able to do that. Yeah, they get it because there's only 5-man boxes and they're facing light boxes, and they could, fall over and get 4 or 5 yards. But like you said, it's moving the chains when they have to. It's taking the pressure off of Josh Allen, because by now he's a stud quarterback, one of the best in the league, perhaps the best after this season, MVP candidate. But he needs the support of that ground game, and that offensive line just has to block better in the running game too.
Defensively, they were the number one team total defense last year. Number one in points, number one against the pass. But I bet you every Buffalo fan says, yeah, but it collapsed at the end of the game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Leslie Frazier comes back defense coordinator, one of the best defense coordinators in the game. I kind of worry about him not ever getting a head coaching job again not because his past, but because everybody's going offensive guys now.
Yeah.
It's like if you're a defensive coordinator, it's very hard to get a head coaching job now. But they go get Von Miller from the world champion LA Rams. He's getting up there in age, but still a guy that can get to the quarterback. Shaq Lawson from the Jets is coming in. They drafted Kyrie Elam, but it seems like despite the fact that, hey, they had the best defense in the league last year, they reacting to what happened against Kansas City. You don't want something like that happening again. But interesting moves there for Buffalo to kind of, I guess, bolster up that getting to the quarterback is what you need to do in the way the NFL's played now.
Yeah, the front seven should be really loaded. I mean, the Von Miller edition, how do you not get better with that? I know Miller's kind of up there, but he was still an impactful rusher for the Rams during their Super Bowl run. I think my biggest question defensively with this team is, aside from injuries, and this is sort of injuries too, is Trey White coming back from the ACL injury. They're a little thin in the secondary. I know they drafted Elam and they've got some decent players in that secondary, but I'm curious to see how that pass defense will hold up, especially if White misses time to begin the year or he's, not quite 100%. But on paper, this should be, another top 5 defense as long as they can hold up on the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, Leslie Frazier, you got to be impressed with what he's done, and consistency. Now, that's the thing with Buffalo. I mean, yes, they lose Brian Dable, but they got consistency within the coaching staff. And how often do we see a team that's been successful over a stretch like they have over the last 3 years and not just get, destroyed with their coaching staff, with guys leaving to take head coaching jobs or getting promoted at other positions? It's really a good thing and really an impressive thing that they've pretty much kept their staff together. And that's also going to equal success for them, just, that consistency.
And McDermott's one of the best head coaches in the league. I don't know the exact list, but he'd probably have to be in my top 5 or 6. I mean, he's just such a good schematic coach. And yeah, I mean, it took Dable 2 years of showing how he sort of fixed Josh Allen's career to get a job. Like he should have probably gotten a job a couple of years ago or 2 seasons ago. I wanted the Jets to get him before they hired Saleh. So yeah, they're a good staff, and they have all the pieces. It feels like this team is due. I just think there's the Rams kind of felt that way last year. You kind of knew the Chiefs were going to get over that hump eventually once they got past New England and Brady. And yeah, it just feels like Buffalo's that team who's just going to take that next step and take this conference. But the talent's there. It's just staying healthy, getting that running game going, and fortifying that secondary a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It does feel like this could be the year unless some major injuries do happen. Now, we talked about consistency. Now we jump to Miami Dolphins, new head coach Mike McDaniel. And look, I'm going to start off with this. This is the one I'm talking about where I may upset some people. If anybody that are Alabama fans are about to listen to this, they may not be too happy with me. I think Tua is a very highly overrated quarterback. I believe that. I saw weaknesses in him when he was at Alabama. Look, I watch SEC all the time. There's not a big game of Tua that I didn't watch in college. He had some nagging injuries last year, but that's not even where my criticism is with him. And I want to see him grow. We'll see what Mike McDaniel can do. See if he can, develop Tua as a better quarterback. He does not throw it well in traffic. He's not someone that can really fit the ball in tight spaces. And I have questions on his arm strength.
Yeah.
And now you got Tyreek Hill there. I hope Tyreek Hill is practicing on how to catch a ball and punt returns, because he's going to stop and just sit there, because I don't think Tua's going to be able to throw it over his shoulder like Patrick Mahomes could. And then another thing with Tua, and I'm just completely just trashing on Tua right now. Everybody's probably saying, man, he just hates Tua. And I don't. I think he's a fine quarterback. But another thing with him, I remember in Alabama, he is good when everything's going well, when he's got a clean pocket, when he's in rhythm. But when he gets flustered, the Clemson national championship game where he threw a couple interceptions early, he made some mistakes. I think he does that still in the NFL. So what are you've heard my thoughts. I'm going to probably get all kind of hate. I might get some hate on me on this one. But what are your thoughts on Tua going into year 3 and what he needs to do? Because really, I think it hinges – the Dolphins' success this upcoming season, to me, hinges on the improvement and development of Tua.
You're absolutely right. The jury's still out for me on Tua. He's someone who I kind of – and again, I write about fantasy football, so I use this as kind of a frame of reference. But he's someone I'm considering as sort of like a late-round flyer quarterback who might sort of ascend this year. I wouldn't say I'm high on him, but I also there's so many factors when evaluating Tua. I think the offensive line is going to be a lot better with adding Teron Armstead. I think that was a huge signing. So they should have a much better offensive line. You can't argue with the weaponry around them right now. And I'm curious to see how Mike McDaniel's new scheme helps him. I think part of the problem with Tua's development so far is Brian Flores, tremendous coordinator, tremendous coach, really great defensive coach, did not know how to manage the offense at all. He had Chan Gailey as his first offensive coordinator. Then he had co-offensive coordinators, which who does that in today's NFL? Just like he had no clue how to manage an offense. And I think McDaniel, coming from that Kyle Shanahan system, if you look at that passing game and see like what Deebo Samuel did last year, it's not really predicated on deep bombs downfield. It's based on scheming receivers open and letting them make plays after the catch. I'm not saying that makes Tua an instantly better quarterback, but I think he's going to have better throwing lanes. He's going to have better schematics, and you're going to have two blazers in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle who will be able to get separation on their own pretty easily with their speed. So I think all of that benefits Tua because, like you said, there are questions about his arm strength. I don't know if he can heave a 70-yard pass to Tyreek Hill like Patrick Mahomes can in stride, but could he throw a 25-yard, crosser route that Hill takes to the house? I could absolutely see it. Yeah. So I'm not giving up on Tua yet. I'll put it that way. I think there's still tools there. I see a little bit of Russell Wilson in his game, minus the deep ball ability. I'm hopeful. From a fantasy perspective, he's someone I'm kind of keeping an eye on. And I think the scheme is really going to mesh well with what he does best, which is sort of those short, middle of the field throws. And then all you got to do is give Tyreek and Waddle 2-3 yards of separation and they're gone. So again, that's not really a glowing review of Tua, but I think what you said, he does well when the circumstances around him are good. I think the circumstances around him, between the coaching, between the offensive line, between the weaponry, is going to be a lot better than it has been in his first two seasons.
Yeah, I am intrigued how Tyreek Hill, because like I said, yes, he can. We saw it in Kansas City. He can take a short pass and take it to the house at any moment. But also, he's kind of receivers used to going deep, flying down the field. Yeah. So I am intrigued to see how he meshes his coaching style, what he learned in San Francisco, which you're right. They don't throw a lot of deep passes. And what Tyreek Hill has been with Kansas City, fastest player in the NFL. So that's an intriguing development with Dolphins. Once again, I feel like I'm repeating myself. Sorry, everybody. But Tyreek Hill's style as a player and Mike McDaniel, what he has been as a offense coordinator, what he's learned, his style of offense. So that's an intriguing mix too, I think.
Yeah, it really is. I think Tyreek is still going to get his just in a different way. Yeah. And I think Waddle can do sort of similar things. He doesn't have quite the top end speed, but man, is he a burner too. I could just see the Dolphins just running sort of drag routes all day and setting picks for Waddle and Hill and just letting them just take the ball 3 yards downfield and scampering for another 35. So I'm really excited to see what that offense looks like, which is hilarious because the running game is a dumpster fire, at least from the talent they have in the backfield. But yeah, they're going to be really interesting. I could see Miami being that team that, hires the new head coach and sort of makes that run to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, if Tua improves, and he doesn't have to be a great quarterback, just be, good. I think he's average now, become good. They could compete for a playoff spot. Defensively, they're about a middle of the pack team last year, 15th overall defense. I know but they got some solid players. You got Christian Wilkins on the defense line, Xavier Howard in the secondary, 27 interceptions. I mean, they've got guys off the end can get to the quarterback. It's kind of when I was looking at it, I was like, how was this team in the middle of the pack defensively in the NFL last year? So if they play to their capabilities, that side of the balls could be really, really good for the Dolphins. And once again, that doesn't put the pressure on offense to score a lot of points every single week.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a top-heavy unit. Like they have some stars at all three levels, but they don't have a ton of depth. And I think the big thing they benefited from, 2 years ago? I think Flores' first year was just insane turnover luck. I think they led the league in turnover margin or were pretty close to it. And I think Howard had like double-digit interception. He had like a ridiculous season, kind of like what Dallas did a year ago. So, the turnover sort of regressed this season, and I think that the defense sort of regressed with it. But it's still a good enough unit. And yeah, it might suffer from the coaching change because I think Flores is such an exceptional defensive mind, but it should be good enough. Like you said, it all kind of hinges on Tua. If that Dolphins offense is scoring, 28, 30 points a game, it doesn't matter quite as much if the defense is allowing 24. So it should be a good enough unit should the offense live up to its billing.
So let's talk about, well, they're not the evil empire anymore. Of course, a certain quarterback left a couple years ago, but the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick. The Darth Vader may not be there anymore, but the Emperor is still alive and kicking. And this is a team interesting last year. They had that 7-game win streak. Then they lose like 4 or 5 toward the end of the year. Their defense was one of the best in the league. We talked about that game against Buffalo when Buffalo couldn't do anything against them in the wind. Then they lose to Buffalo after that. This team, you're right. It feels like they didn't do much, and I'm very concerned offensively for them with Mac Jones. Not that Mac Jones is not capable. I really like him as a quarterback. Joe Judge is going to be helping calling plays. I saw Matt Patricia was added to help out on offense. Bill Belichick. I'm worrying about the loss of Josh McDaniels. How will that impact this team? And I worry the impact it could have on Mac Jones, because it didn't really like Bill Belichick really put an effort to actually go find a legit offensive coordinator for this team.
Yeah, Joe Judge is calling play. Yeah, they're a mess. I don't know. I don't like this team offensively, and I'm still not a huge Mac Jones guy. I think he did a great job sort of being that game manager. I think we talked about this at some point last year, sort of evaluating the rookie QBs, but everything was sort of tailor-made for Jones to just be fine and, kind of keep things on schedule and not do much else. And now you're kind of hoping he's going to take that year 2 leap, and he doesn't really have the weaponry to do it. I mean, Devontae Parker, Kendrick Bourne, Jacoby Myers is okay. They drafted the Thornton kid out of Baylor early. A lot of people said that was a reach. Nelson Aguilar. The tight ends are just Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith is just a gross combo. It's not a great offense on paper. And yeah, like you said, you take the offensive mastermind and McDaniels out of the equation, who I think is arguably the best offensive coordinator in the game. I think it really hurts this offense. And like you said, that there's just a lack of continuity now. You don't know who's even calling the plays. It's just, or is it Patricia? Was it Patricia who they said is going to make an offensive assistant or something? I feel like it was either Joe Judge or Patricia, 2 just incompetent coaches who were like moving the offensive play calling. I can't remember who, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. I hate doubting the Patriots because of Belichick, but they didn't really add anybody all that exciting in free agency. They let their best defensive free agent go in J.C. Jackson. And it's just, I don't know. It's just not. It's a hard team to get excited about.
Yeah, when Devontae Parker, I mean, he was good in 2019, but this is 2022. He had over 1,000 yards that year. It was over 1,272 catches, 9 touchdowns. But last year he has been hampered. He had some injuries. I know that as well, but he hasn't been the same player as he was in 2019. If you were getting 2019 Devontae Parker, this is probably all right. You got a number 1 receiver for Mac Jones searching, but that's not it. So I'm with you. And then, yeah, I think offensively they're going to struggle, and they did at times last year too. I mean, Mac Jones is just going to have to. I guess he's going to get an idea what it was like for Tom Brady the last couple of years there in New England. Not much offense supporting cast around them. Defensively, we talked about they were 4th in the league last year total defense. You talk about the subtraction they had, but other than that, they pretty much are bringing back the same unit. You feel like defensively they're going to be good because of Belichick.
But I think so, yeah.
But at the end of the year last season, the same group, they had issues. They gave up 27 to the Colts, 33 to the Bills, 33 to the Dolphins, and then 47 to the Bills. So I'm kind of wondering, you bring most of that group back. Is that the defense they really are, or are they the defense they were for most of last year? I think that's a big question for the Patriots to answer when we get to the season.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you look at you just mentioned it, 27 against the Colts. That was a Carson Wentz-led offense, but good coaching in Frank Reich. Then they got served by Buffalo twice, including in the playoffs. Good coaching. I think if teams can sort of figure out Belichick's scheme, I think the whole mystique of the Patriots is Belichick's scheme and preparation outweighs talent. He makes his talent better. But if you're facing coaches who are I mean, nobody's just as good as Belichick, but if they're maybe a rung below who can sort of figure out what he's doing schematically, it becomes kind of easy to gouge them. And you saw Buffalo do that towards the end of the year, and Indianapolis did it in that crucial, I think that was like a Saturday night game, I remember. So, yeah, they'll probably be a top half of the league unit, maybe a top 10 unit just because it's Belichick, and they'll play some, incompetent coaching staffs here and there across the season. But, yeah, the Patriots are a weird team. I just look at the personnel, and it's like, the only argument I have for giving them a shot at the playoffs is their head coach. And I don't know. I guess coaching is critical in this league, obviously, but can he really overcome this roster? Because it's just I'm looking at the depth chart and I'm just like, blah. It's just a lot of tapioca pudding, just boring. And they're going to run the ball well. They're going to play good defense. Mac Jones will probably throw 24 passes a game, and they're going to hope to win games 17-9. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to be fun to watch.
And that just doesn't work in the NFL now. You got to be able to put up points on a regular basis. I mean, because look at these teams you're going to see in the AFC. We talked about Buffalo, and then in the North, you got the Bengals, you got the Ravens. Those are two that can put up points with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. You've got Indianapolis is going to be a really good team with Matt Ryan and what they got to run him, and he is an improvement over Wentz. And all the teams in the AFC West can put up points.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can't go in there being a defensive team. It just doesn't work. So now we get to talk about the New York Jets, and I just got to say, if you take your mom to a Jets game this year, just do not let her get close to Zach Wilson.
I knew that was
the Cougar Hunter at quarterback for the New York Jets. He's alive and well. Everybody, I've been waiting all day to say those jokes. So I've been waiting on it. Ever since I knew we was going to talk about this division, I was like, okay, I got to get one in there. But in all seriousness, they were 4-13 last year. They did well in the draft. I mean, a lot of interesting, really good picks for them there. I like Breece Hall at running back. I mean, you got Garrett Wilson receiver. You got playmakers. You went out and got Sauce Gardner from Cincinnati. Some really solid picks. Where are you seeing that? You're going in to Robert Saleh, his second year as head coach. Where are you seeing the Jets at going into this season?
I kind of see them as a boomer bust team. And for Jets fans, that's going to sound pretty exciting because for the last decade, it's been, well, they're probably going to win maybe 6 games. There's some excitement here. They have to be one of the most improved teams in the conference, if not the league, if you base it off of their, good free agent additions. They didn't make any huge splashy signings, but they added a lot of really solid depth. Guys like Jordan Whitehead are really exciting additions, just those kind of examples. And then the guard, I can't remember, Laken Tomlinson, like really solid, sound free agent moves. They weren't really in on any of the big market guys, but they just made really solid moves. And, draft experts, I'm not used to this, but the Jets got rave reviews for their draft, which is rare. And, I like Joe Douglas's aggressiveness. I mean, they're really improved and they seem like a team that could be the Sears versions of the Bengals, or they could be sort of another year away and sort of stumble again to another 5-win season. I think a lot of that comes down to the quarterback, the Cougar, Zach Wilson. And hey, I love the joke that this is the first time the Jets have scored over 40 since like 2018. That actually cracked me up, so I like that one. But maybe a little Joe Namath vibe. I don't know, kind of a ladies' man. I don't know. I'm trying to rationalize this.
His Twitter bio, when it said Cougar Nation, brought on a whole new meaning.
Yeah, really. Yeah, BYU. Yeah, that's for sure. It's interesting because he went to BYU too, and he's doing all this scandalous behavior. But I'm excited. I don't have high expectations because if you look at their schedule, they start with the entire AFC North, and it's just the first 8-9 weeks before the bye are just an absolute gauntlet. But schedule softens up in the second half. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs. They're one of the teams getting the most Super Bowl future tickets wagered. I'm not going that far. I think 7-8 wins is a realistic target, and if they achieve that, I'd be really happy.
So we talk about a quarterback, Zach Wilson. On a serious note, threw 11 receptions, 9 touchdowns last year. He was the lowest rated quarterback in the league. But he gave him some weapons. He showed some flashes what he can be. There were moments where he showed some great athletic ability, great throws here. Just where does he go? I mean, obviously, all he can go is up. But what is the most pivotal improvement in his game he needs to bring for the Jets to have that possibility of 8-9 wins to double their win total from last year, which was 4?
I think it's decision making. I think making that transition from BYU, who didn't play slouches, but they weren't a Power 5 program. They didn't play Power 5 programs 9 out of 12 games a year. I think he was sort of overwhelmed by the speed of the NFL, by the talent level on the opposing defenses. I think that was just a massive adjustment, and it led to sort of some haywire and helter-skelter decisions. Now, he sort of toned that down towards the end of the year, and that's where sort of the Jets coaching staff is sort of, excited about entering this year, limiting those mistakes. But I think entering his second season, he needs to be able to not play hero ball. I think it was sort of some similar to Josh Allen. He's gotten a lot of comps to Josh Allen because of his arm talent. And I think it's sort of a similar deal where you have to take the 6-yard completion that's open. Don't go for the 25-yard completion that's in double coverage. I think he tried to do too much as a rookie, and it sort of burnt him. I think if he can sort of scale back his decision-making and again, let this 49ers passing scheme sort of work for him, with the former staffer from Kyle Shanahan as the OC. If he can just sort of let Mike LaFleur's scheme work for him, wait for guys to get open, know those windows, know where your guys are going to be, and just make the right decisions, I think it'll go a long way because the talent is there and it's evident, and he showed it towards the end of last season.
On the defense side of the ball, of course, with Robert Saleh, that's what he's known for. What he did with the 49ers, the defensive coordinator, the great defensive teams they had. They were last place in a lot of categories in the NFL last year. Like I mentioned, you do go out and you draft Sauce Gardner, which helps a defense that was the worst in the league against the pass last year. Or 30th against the pass, not worse, 30th against the pass. Carl Lawson's coming back. You hope that's a big get for them. I've always, maybe this is just from my SEC stuff here, CJ Mosley, I like him. I think he's a good player. He's a solid player. Quinnen Williams up front, another, Alabama name. Having an Alabama player, you got a chance of being solid. Defensively, obviously, all you can do is improve off of last season. I named those guys, who they drafted, Carl Lawson coming back. How much do you see this defense being much better this season?
I think it's going to take some time. They've got a couple rookies playing prominent roles with Johnson and Sauce Gardner. Carl Lawson's coming back from the Achilles. I think that's going to take some time. They're working in new pieces across all 3 levels, really. But there's a lot of talent, and I think this could be a unit that sort of blossoms as the year goes on. I think at the beginning there's going to be some growing pains, especially because they got to play Lamar Jackson week 1, and the Bengals I think week 3 or 4. So they're gonna this unit still isn't overly deep, especially in the secondary, but they've got a really exciting pass rush. They're kind of going with like a quantity over quality approach. Not that Lawson and Quinnen Williams aren't quality guys, but they've got John Franklin Myers, they've got Jermaine Johnson, they've got Sheldon Rankin, Solomon Thomas. They're sort of implementing, again, that San Francisco style of having kind of 2 big name studs and then sort of rotating the rest on the defensive line and keeping guys fresh. So I think that unit could really, really blossom, especially if Lawson can recover from the Achilles. And, like you said, CJ Mosley's just a solid player. He's, maybe not the modern middle linebacker in terms of his pass coverage skills, but he's just a great run stuffer. And, I think Sauce Gardner could be like the shutdown corner of the decade, sort of Revis-like for the Jets. So there's a lot to like. There's a lot of interesting pieces. I do think it will take a little bit of time to gel.
Yeah, absolutely. Just for the Alabama fans out there, you heard me. I talked bad about Tua. I talked really good about Mac Jones. I talked good about CJ Mosley. I did the wrestling, you were a heel, then you turned to a face. That's what I did here. That's what I did here on the show. Because if Alabama fans listen, they love Tua. But on a serious note, this division, 1 through 4, I feel like it's going to be Buffalo. I like Miami just because everything else other than Tua. The Patriots didn't do much to improve, as we discussed. I'm sorry, Matt. I'll put the Jets in fourth. But where do you see this division 1 through 4?
Yeah, I completely agree with you on the top two. I think Buffalo wins the division, barring injury. Obviously, I think they're the best team maybe in the National Football League. I mean, they're just really, really talented, great coaching staff. I think Miami pushes for double-digit wins, and I think they get that wild card spot. I don't know which one exactly, but I think they will get a wild card spot. Do I want to get crazy and pick the Jets third? I just don't think the Patriots are very good. I don't know. I mean, the Jets and the Patriots could both win around like 6-7 games. That would probably be more the Jets ceiling and the Patriots floor, but I don't know. I'm just looking at this roster for this conversation. I'm not a huge fan of it. So I'll put the Jets third. I think they have more upward mobility than the Patriots do. I really think the Patriots more likely than not go down from last season, where I think the Jets, if they can steal a couple games early, they could push for a 500 record, and that would probably be good enough for third place. So I'll say Bills, Dolphins. I'll go with the Jets third, and then the Patriots.
All right, and I can see it. Like you said, the Patriots roster does not look great. I mean, and we differ on Mac Jones a little bit. I'm a big fan of what I've seen, but he don't have much around him. So that's going,
No.
and he's not the quarterback yet that can overcome that. He may never be that, but we know he's not that now, and that's hard. There's certain quarterbacks that can overcome that. He's not one of them.
Yeah, and I mean, take out Belichick. I mean, I know that's impossible to do, but look strictly at the rosters.
Mm-hmm.
Who has a better roster?
Yeah,
Jets or the Patriots? I mean, maybe not in 2022 the Jets, but I think they have a lot of exciting young talent. Like you said, I haven't even mentioned Breece Hall. I haven't even mentioned Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore. They've got talent at kind of the key positions that you need to have talent at this league. And I think the offensive line is going to be better too. They really shored that up, and we'll see what happens with Mekhi Becton. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like in an optimistic mood or something, but the Patriots don't have a good roster, and we'll see. I mean, maybe it's just Belichick does it again, but I'll go bold. I'll put the Jets third. I don't know.
We are all optimistic as we head into any football season that any of our teams out there are going to be good. And what has been good is this conversation, Matt, talking all things AFC East with you. I always appreciate you coming on the show. If listeners want to follow you online, where can they find you?
Yeah, so if you're looking for fantasy football info, it is almost draft season. We're getting to that point. Obviously go to fantasypros.com for rankings and analysis, obviously, and great tools that'll help you win your league this year. And then follow me at Real Matt Barbato on Twitter. And the same goes for Betting Pros. I do a lot of sports betting, especially NFL writing. So if you're looking for picks for, the weekend's games, head over to bettingpros.com.
All right. Sounds good, Matt. Everybody go give him a follow, check out his work. And once again, Matt, appreciate the time. And I look forward to talking to you again sometime down the road.
Phillip, it's always a pleasure. I can't wait to talk to you in October when the Jets are 0-7.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Cover 2 NFL podcast. Once again, thanks to Matt Barbato for coming on the show this week to help me preview the AFC East. Next week, we'll be previewing the NFC North. And joining me there will be Brian Jones from popculture.com. Of course, he used to cover the Packers over at 247 Sports. So it'll be a good podcast next Wednesday as we preview the NFC North. And please go check out the Talking College Football podcast. If you love college football, go check it out. Earlier this week, I was joined by Josh Neighbors of Locked On Big 12. We went back, looked at the Big 12 Media Days, and previewed the upcoming season for the Big 12. There will be 2 of those coming out next week. On Tuesday, we'll be previewing the ACC with Matt Murchell from the Orlando Sentinel. And then later in the week, Saturday Down South, Adam Spencer will be joining me. We'll be talking SEC as well. So go subscribe to that podcast. Be ready for next week's episode of this one where we preview the NFC North. Go back and check out the NFC East preview last week if you haven't done so with Brian Manning from Commander's Wire. That was a really fun conversation breaking down those 4 teams. So gearing up for football season on this podcast and on the Talking College Football podcast. Getting ready for college football season, getting ready for the NFL season. Football season is upon us, everybody, and it is a great time. Let you guys know you can find me all over the internet. Just look me up at PJordanSEC. Podcast is available on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, YouTube, wherever you want to get your podcast, it is there. If you're on Apple Podcasts, Please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. You can watch the show on YouTube at Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. And please just hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. And if you leave a comment on a video, on the Cover 2 video, I will read that on a future edition of the show. If you go leave a comment on the college football one, I'm going to say that comment on the college football podcast. But go comment on anything. I really would appreciate your feedback. You can always email me at sports.philipjordan@gmail.com. I will talk to you guys next week. We're talking more football on Talking College Football and right here on the Cover 2 NFL podcast. Hope everybody has a great week. Until next time, bye-bye.